All right, so get ready, everyone, because today we're going to be looking at Indonesian horror.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, and you guys sent us in a pretty interesting source, a summary of the 2024 film Thaghut.
Okay.
And for anyone out there who's familiar with Islamic theology, you might recognize that word Thaghut right away.
Yeah, yeah,
It refers to false idols or anything worship other than God. So we know right away we're dealing with some pretty intense spiritual themes here.
for sure.
So we're going to try to unpack the plot and explore those themes and try to see what this film tells us about Indonesian society and its anxieties.
Absolutely. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, great. Are you excited to delve into the dark side with me today?
Always. I think Indonesian horror is just such a rich genre. It blends folklore and social commentary and religious beliefs so seamlessly.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree, and I'm excited to see how Thaghut kind of uses all those elements.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. The film opens with this incredibly tense scene. It's a room lit by flickering candles.
Okay.
There's a portrait of Mulia, who's a well-respected healer in the village, and a young boy, Len, who seems to be hiding something in a book box.
Hmm.
And then suddenly, darkness, just a palpable sense of dread, descends on the scene and then cut to the discovery of Mulia's body in a nearby field, and his head has been severed.
Wow.
What a start. I mean,
That's intense.
I know right away I felt this sense of mystery, like who would do this, why, but also this hint of ritualistic violence. What jumped out at you in those opening moments?
Well, I mean, just the use of light and shadow right away that creates such an atmosphere of unease. I mean, candles, right? They're so often associated with prayer and spirituality in Indonesian culture, but here they're juxtaposed with this brutal murder.
Right?
And then the decapitation itself. I mean, that's not random.
No.
Decapitation, it resonates with Indonesian folklore where the head is often seen as the seat of power and spiritual energy.
Oh, interesting.
It's almost as if the film is hinting at like a destruction of spiritual harmony right from the start.
Yeah, like a power struggle of some sort.
Exactly.
It's interesting you mentioned the head because we then shift to our main character, Ainam, who seems to be utterly fascinated by Mulia.
Okay.
We see her practicing these healing rituals, almost mimicking his mannerisms.
Mm.
And there's this really clear contrast between her almost obsessive interest in Mulia and his methods and the views of her teacher who emphasizes traditional medicine and prayer.
Right.
Even her friend Bagas seems kind of skeptical of all this. He's urging her to rely on prayer instead of what he sees as these potentially dangerous practices.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you make of this tension between different approaches to healing?
I think it reflects a very real debate within Indonesian society,
Mm.
right? There's this deep respect for traditional healing practices, a lot of which are rooted in ancient beliefs and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's also a very strong current of Islamic faith that sometimes views these practices with suspicion.
Right, especially when they involve elements that could be seen as straying from Islamic teachings.
Exactly. And that tension, I think, is just fertile ground for horror, where those lines between faith and superstition and the supernatural get all blurred.
Oh, for sure.
And that blurring is really evident when we actually see Mulia in action in the film.
Oh,
She
yeah.
heals a man's hand and seemingly conjures money through these elaborate rituals.
So is it genuine healing power? Is it trickery or is it something darker?
Right. The film deliberately leaves us guessing.
Ooh, I like that.
And that ambiguity, I think, taps into some anxieties that are really deeply rooted in Indonesian culture.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long history of healers and mystics claiming supernatural abilities. Some are revered, some are feared.
Hmm.
And this fear is often linked to the belief in Dukun Sante,
Oh, wow.
sorcerers who can inflict harm through black magic.
Interesting.
So when we see Mulia performing in these acts, it triggers those ingrained fears.
Right. It makes you question the source of his power.
Exactly.
And then the plot takes this really dramatic turn. Ainam has a vision of Mulia, and he reveals that she is his daughter.
Oh, wow.
This revelation, coupled with news of his death, sends her on this journey to his village with Renabagas.
Okay.
But even the journey itself is unsettling. Ainam sees a terrifying demon on the road, a clear sign that something is deeply wrong.
It's interesting because that really ties into what we were talking about earlier, that blending of folklore and spiritual anxieties.
Yeah.
In Indonesian folklore, demons or jinn are often associated with specific locations, places where the veil between the human and spirit world is thin.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So this encounter with the demon, it not only foreshadows danger, but it also introduces this concept of spiritual geography,
I see.
where certain places become imbued with this palpable sense of dread.
Yeah, you definitely get that sense. And that dread just intensifies when they arrive at the village.
Uh-oh.
The funeral rituals for Mulia are strange. They're filled with these non-Islamic elements, and the villagers seem oddly detached from the grieving process.
Hmm.
It's like there's this layer of unease beneath the surface of their mourning.
Yeah, this plays into a classic trope in Indonesian horror, the subversion of religious expectations.
Right.
The film is subtly hinting at practices that deviate from Islamic tradition.
Yeah, and it makes the audience question whether these rituals are genuine expressions of grief or something far more sinister.
Exactly.
And then things take an even darker turn for Ainam.
Oh, no.
She's isolated from her friends, she's being manipulated by Len, and forced to participate in this really disturbing ritual.
What kind of ritual?
It involves a heated knife being stabbed into her hands and feet.
Oh, my God.
It's incredibly disturbing and visually unsettling, and it feels very deliberate, like an attempt to break her down and make her susceptible to some external force.
Right, and the imagery seems deliberately evocative of both traditional healing practices, but also darker rituals associated with black magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's as if the film is suggesting that the line between healing and harm, between spiritual power and these dangerous forces, can be incredibly thin.
Yeah, especially when someone is vulnerable and easily manipulated like Ainam seems to be at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
And just as things are kind of escalating, we meet Ramat,
Okay,
who's the son of Mulia's second wife. He seems to be a genuinely good guy.
okay.
And he warns Ainam about the darkness surrounding her and urges her to rely on prayer.
Interesting. So he's like a voice of reason amidst this growing chaos.
Yeah, almost like a counterpoint to the allure of Moya's methods.
Right. What's your take on his role in the film so far?
I think he embodies this more traditional, more conservative approach to faith,
Mm-hmm.
which adds another layer to the film's exploration of these different belief systems and the potential for manipulation within those systems.
Yeah, I can see that.
And his warnings, whether Ainam heeds them or not, they definitely raise the stakes. They make us even more apprehensive about what's to come.
For sure, on what is to come, because all this is happening, and meanwhile, Rhian and Bogus stumble upon a hidden basement in Mulia's house.
Oh my God, this is like classic horror,
Right.
like opening Pandora's box.
Uh-oh.
They find a key hidden in a book, which unlocks another secret room. And while they're exploring this room, they're attacked by something supernatural.
Oh, no.
They manage to escape, but Rin's camera gets left behind.
Oh, that's not good.
So we've got this hidden basement, the secret room. They represent this unearthing of something that should have remained buried.
Right.
And the fact that this exploration leads to this attack, it suggests that Moya was hiding something truly dangerous.
Yeah, something that's now been unleashed.
Oh, for sure. Meanwhile, outside Ainam is now in this trance-like state, clearly possessed and exhibiting powers similar to Moyer.
This is not looking good.
And the villagers, convinced of her leadership, they follow her blindly. It's kind of chilling to think about how easily people can be swayed, especially when they're looking for answers or clinging to hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where the film's social commentary really shines through.
Yeah,
It's raising questions about the allure of these charismatic figures, the potential for manipulation within communities, and the dangers of surrendering critical thinking to blind faith.
right.
It's a theme that resonates not just in Indonesia, but globally, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we've got Ainam seemingly possessed Rin and Bogus, uncovered these dark secrets, and Rahmat desperately trying to warn everyone. This feels like a powder keg about to explode.
Oh, yeah.
We'll delve into the fallout of all of this in the next part of our deep dive, but before we move on, what stands out to you most about this first half of the film?
I think the film's ability to weave together Indonesian folklore anxieties about spiritual healers and this commentary on social dynamics is just so compelling. It's
Yeah.
a horror film that operates on so many different levels that it just keeps us constantly engaged and on edge.
Well said. We'll be back in a flash to see how this thrilling story unfolds. Okay, so we left off with Ainam seemingly under the influence of something pretty sinister. Rin and Bogus discovering that horrifying basement filled with the corpses of Muya's victims, and Rahmat trying to warn everyone about the danger. What happens next? This feels like a recipe for disaster.
It definitely is. The tension just keeps ratcheting up as Rakhmat tries to explain what's really going on to Bogus. He reveals that Mulia's powers came at a dark price, sacrifices to a demonic entity.
Hmm.
And he drops another bombshell. Only a blood relative could kill Mulia, which is why Rakhmat himself ended up having to take his father's life.
Wow, so that adds a whole new layer of complexity to Ramat's character. He's not just grappling with the legacy of his father's evil, but also carrying the burden of having taken a life even if it was to stop a greater evil.
Exactly.
This film really doesn't shy away from those difficult moral questions, does it?
Not at all. It forces us to consider the weight of those choices, the sacrifices involved in confronting darkness, and those lingering consequences that can haunt even the most well-intentioned actions.
And just when you think things can't get any worse, Ainam, now clearly under the demon's control, attacks Ramat and Ajang.
Oh no.
Ajang tries to protect her son, but Ainam fatally wounds her with a stone.
Oh my God.
It's a brutal scene, and it really marks a turning point in the film, I think.
It's heartbreaking, and it really shatters any remaining illusion that the demon's influence might be benign. It also highlights the devastating impact of unchecked power and the way it can corrupt even those who might have started with good intentions.
Right, and the villagers finally witnessing the true nature of the force they've been following, they're forced to confront their own complicity.
Yeah, it's a stark wake-up call for them.
For sure. The villagers now realizing the danger tie Ainam to a tree,
Okay.
and then Lin appears revealing his own twisted plan.
What was his plan?
Well, he orchestrated everything from spreading news of Mulia's death to manipulating Ainam, all because he was hoping to somehow transfer Mulia's powers to his sick daughter.
Oh, wow. Talk about misguided desperation.
I know, right? Like his manipulation of Ainam is just this tragic betrayal of trust, driven by a combination of love and fear, I guess.
And a complete lack of foresight.
Yeah. And as Lin is about to help Ainam, the demon, now fully in control, retaliates and kills Lin with a spear.
Yikes.
And speaking through Ainam, the demon boasts about its hold over the village, declaring they've all abandoned God to follow it. It's a chilling display of power.
It really is. It's a moment of pure horror where the demon's true nature is on full display.
Yeah.
It's reveling in its manipulation, and it highlights the way it preys on human weaknesses, desperation, fear, the desire for easy solutions.
Right, and the villagers, they're confronted with the consequences of their choices, the price they've paid for surrendering their critical thinking and their faith.
It's a bleak moment.
It is, but then Bogus, refusing to give up, starts reciting prayers.
Okay.
And something incredible happens. The other villagers join him.
Oh, wow.
Their collective faith acts as a weapon against the demonic force. It's a powerful scene. It showcases the potential of unity and faith in the face of overwhelming darkness.
It's a turning point in the film. It highlights the strength that can be found in community and shared belief. The villagers, by reclaiming their faith and standing together, they disrupt the demon's hold. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope can emerge.
Yeah. It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of collective action.
For sure.
So their prayers weaken the demon, forcing it to leave Ainam's body.
Okay.
They change into clean clothes and pray together, seeking forgiveness for their sins. But as they're praying, Rin notices something unsettling.
Oh, what's that?
Her rosary breaks, and the beads roll towards Ainam. And closer inspection reveals that Ainam might not be entirely free from the demon's grip after all.
Oh my God, what a twist.
I know. What do you make of that broken rosary?
Well, it's a brilliant use of symbolism, I think.
Yeah.
It injects this sense of doubt and unease into what initially seemed like a moment of triumph. The broken rosary, a symbol of faith and protection shattering at this pivotal moment.
Right.
It foreshadows that the danger might not be completely over.
It makes you wonder, is Ainam truly free? Or is there a part of her that's still vulnerable to the demon's influence?
It's a chilling thought.
It is. It leaves us with this sense of uncertainty, even as the village attempts to heal and rebuild. We'll have to wait for the final part of our deep dive to find out what truly happens to Ainam and the village. But before we get there, what struck you most about this incredibly tense and emotionally charged section of the film?
I think for me, it's the way the film balances those moments of sheer terror with these glimmers of hope.
Yeah.
It acknowledges the very real power of evil and the devastating consequences it can have, but it also reminds us of the importance of faith community and the enduring strength of the human spirit.
Yeah.
It's a complex and thought-provoking exploration of the human condition in the face of these extraordinary challenges.
Absolutely. We'll be back shortly to unravel that final act of Thaghut and see what fate awaits Ainam and the villagers. Stay with us. All right, so welcome back to the final part of our Thaghut deep dive. We left off with a village trying to pick up the pieces after that demonic attack. And Ainam seemingly freed, but with that broken rosary, that image still really sticks with me.
Oh yeah, that broken rosary definitely leaves us with some questions.
Yeah, like what happens next? Is she truly free, or is there more to the story?
Well, on the surface, it seems like things are kind of returning to normal. The villagers, they bury Ajang and the other victims of Moya's sacrifices.
Right.
They're trying to restore some sense of peace and order. And we see Ainam reunited with Uwak, the man who raised her. She expresses gratitude for his guidance and believes it's what protected her from succumbing to the darkness.
Yeah, it's a touching scene, a moment of human connection amidst all that trauma.
It is, but you're right about those broken rosary beads. That imagery keeps coming back.
Yeah, what's the deeper significance there? It can't just be a random detail.
No, definitely not. It's a potent symbol. It reminds us that even though the immediate threat is gone, the scars of this experience run deep. The broken rosary represents this fractured faith, a sense of vulnerability that lingers even as they try to rebuild their lives.
It suggests that the battle isn't truly over, right?
Right, exactly. The battle for their souls, for the very essence of their community, it's not over yet.
And speaking of lingering threats, we see that Bagas has entrusted Moya's demonic book to Uwak, urging him to have its powers neutralized before handing it over to a scholar.
They're not taking any chances, are they?
Nope, they've learned a hard lesson about the allure and the danger of these kinds of artifacts.
That book represents a source of corrupt knowledge, a pathway to dark power that could easily fall into the wrong hands.
Exactly. So their decision to neutralize it before passing it on, it speaks to a newfound awareness, a recognition that they need to be proactive in safeguarding their community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the village is rebuilding, the demonic book is being dealt with, but then we get that final, incredibly powerful
Oh,
scene.
yeah.
We see Rin serving Ainam. She seems lost in thought, her expression conflicted, and then it's revealed that the demon is still whispering to her,
Oh, no.
tempting her to follow in her father's footsteps.
Is she gonna give in?
But this time Ainam holds firm. She clings to her faith, and the demon ultimately loses its grip. We see her continue her prayers, seemingly at peace. What a way to end the film. What are your thoughts on this resolution?
Well, it's a masterful blend of hope and unease.
Mm-hmm.
Hinnom's choice to resist that influence suggests that she's emerged from this whole ordeal stronger, more aware of the spiritual battles that are raging within and around her.
Right.
But the fact that the demon still tries to sway her, even after everything that's happened, it underscores the persistent nature of evil. That constant struggle between darkness and light that defines the human experience.
Yeah, it's a reminder that faith and resilience, they're not one-time victories, but ongoing journeys, constantly tested and refined through trials and temptations. So as we reach the end of our deep dive into Thaghut, what key takeaways would you say the film offers? It's clearly more than just a horror flick.
Oh, absolutely. It's a film that delves into the complexities of faith, the allure and danger of power, the fragility of community, and that enduring battle between good and evil that plays out not just in the supernatural realm, but within our own hearts.
So well said. It asks us to confront our own vulnerabilities, to consider the choices we make when we're confronted with darkness, and to recognize the strength that can be found in faith community and the unwavering pursuit of light.
Exactly.
Thaghut is a film that lingers in your mind long after the credits roll, prompting reflection and maybe even a little soul-searching. So if any of our listeners out there find themselves intrigued by Indonesian horror, what other films would you recommend they explore?
Oh, there are so many great ones out there. Satan's Slaves is a modern classic.
Okay.
It weaves this chilling tale of family secrets and supernatural terror. Impedagor delves into Indonesian folklore and the haunting consequences of ancestral curses.
I've heard of that one.
And for something more recent, The Queen of Black Magic is visually stunning and psychologically disturbing. It's a really great exploration of guilt revenge and the dark side of tradition.
Those are some excellent recommendations. And on that note, we wrap up our deep dive into Thaghut. We hope you found this exploration insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit chilling. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep the lights on.